What's going on, you guys? Welcome on back to the channel. Now, it feels so good to finally be able to say this, but ReZero Season 4 has officially begun, and as such, begins the coverage of ReZero Season 4 over here on the channel. Now, ReZero Season 4 has really been my most anticipated anime in a long time. I haven't felt this way since waiting for My Hero Academia's final season. So, finally being able to sit down and talk about this season is something that I don't take for granted. So I'm looking forward to talking about this season. So without further ado, man, let's get into it. Let's talk about this premiere episode for ReZero Season 4. So, first thing that I want to get out of the way now is that while I was a little disappointed at first that it wasn't a 40-minute episode like last season's was, I also understand it. Last season's premiere episode, they dealt with a lot of like high octane action right off the bat. Like there was a lot of setup, and then there was like Subaru's initial death in that arc. So I get why that episode was 40 minutes long. Here, this episode mostly just serves as kind of like a setup episode for what's going to happen later on in the arc. So I get why this was the like standard 23-minute length episode, but even though it was a shorter episode, I did like that the content was presented in an easily digestible way. Like my problem with ReZero is like a lot of the times in the anime, there's a lot of cut content, but here it didn't really feel like, I don't know. To me, it feels like not a lot was cut, but for light novel readers, maybe that opinion is different. But just for me, I like that the information was like presented this way. It felt really good to me. I liked it a lot. Now, another thing that I want to talk about is the character models. My whole problem with ReZero back in the day, especially in the days of season 2, is that the character models weren't that great, in my opinion. Especially in season 2. If you go back to season 2 now and compare it to like season 3, season 4, it's really bad to look at. Like season 2 Subaru looked awful, in my opinion. But here in season 4, I really haven't had that problem so far. Like the character models all seem to be on point. This is actually the best Subaru has ever looked for me as a character model wise. So I'm very excited. I'm happy with the presentation so far. I'm happy with how everybody looks. So that complaint for me is already out the window so far. So looking forward to seeing how the character models continue to be expressive, especially like they were in this episode for Subaru, and especially with from what I hear, like with how things develop later on in the arc. The fact that that these character models are so expressive is awesome to me. So looking forward to seeing where that goes next. And now I think it's time to get into the episode. So I like that this episode essentially starts with the fallout of what happened last season, right? I was a little worried that we were just going to blow past that and kind of just like get into traveling to the tower. But I like that they took a second, took a beat to essentially talk to everybody in the group and be like, hey, does anybody know who Julius is? Does anybody know? Nobody remembers him. And that's painful for Julius because you can tell he's a character that prides himself on his name, and the fact that nobody knows his name or anything like that, you can tell that he's at a loss right now. He doesn't really know what to do with himself, and you can feel that throughout the episode. And up until his conversation with Subaru later on, like Julius just looks like he's depressed, and I feel for him, man. Like Julius is a really good character, so the fact that he essentially has gone through essentially what Subaru has gone through in the past, where nobody like remembers him or anything like that. He essentially has to start over so many of his bonds that he had from the past, like with Reinhard, for example. He essentially has to start from scratch. Like that that hurts. I feel for him because it's not like Rem where she's essentially just in a catatonic state. He has to walk through life now that nobody really remembers him at all. Like that's a completely different way of it being interpreted, and I like that a lot. Now, another thing that I really wanted to talk about, especially for this episode, when I saw it, man, was Subaru and Anastasia's campfire scene. That scene was insane because when they're talking at the campfire and she essentially just says that she's a kidna. I first of all, I paused the episode because I was literally shocked. I was like, "What do you mean you're a kidna?" Like that was crazy to me. The fact that she's essentially like Echidna is essentially taking over Anastasia's body. I don't know why she's taking over Anastasia's body, but dude, when I saw that reveal, that was the most like surprised I've been with ReZero in such a long time, man. That was so cool to me. Like the fact that we got this reveal for Anastasia, and you immediately you see Subaru essentially just like get angry and get defensive because you remember from season 2 all of his trauma with Echidna, everything that he's gone through in that season essentially came bubbling back up for him to the surface, and you can visibly see how angry he is. But then once they start explaining and we realize that this isn't the Echidna that we know, it's essentially just like what is it, what do they say, something like a fox spirit type thing that kind of has the same name derived, but it's not the same Echidna that we know. You see Subaru able to settle down because this isn't the same Echidna that he knew. This is just an Echidna that is essentially taken over Anastasia. Now, why has she taken over Anastasia? I don't think they really properly said why. In my opinion, I had to like go look it up, and how they or why they're essentially taking over her is so Anastasia doesn't completely lose like all her memory of Julius, right? That was essentially the reason why they had this Echidna take over her, because I guess she's like close to the odd, I think is what they said, if I remember correctly, but she essentially just doesn't want to lose her memory of Julius or anything like that. And I get that. Her and Julius essentially had a really strong relationship, like through like spanning from season 1. So it makes sense why she wouldn't want to forget that. But I kind of wish that was explained a little bit better. Maybe it was, and maybe I just wasn't properly like grasping it at the time, but that's essentially what was going on there. And dude, still that's so cool. That was one of the craziest reveals that ReZero has done in a long time. And I especially liked how long the scene was, right? Like we didn't really blow past it or anything like that. That you kind of just sat there with it for a while. And I loved that. I loved how like when there were breaks in the dialogue and you could just see Subaru just processing everything that he's heard. That was awesome to me. Like it's scenes like that, it's directorial choices like that that make ReZero such a great anime. Like you get to see Subaru just sit with this information, see him process everything that he's hearing, and it just makes the scene that much better in my opinion. Now, moving on from that, there is one thing that I wanted to talk about too. It's pertaining to Reinhard. What I like too about what happened in this episode is that they set up that they're going to the tower to essentially try to get everyone's memories back. But what I liked is that they set up here that Reinhard himself, he tried to go there to essentially help the royal family, and he couldn't even get there. Like every time it felt like he was getting close to the tower, it would just like move further and further away from him. So he never even got there. So I like that it sets up the essentially looming notion that the strongest character in the ReZero verse couldn't get to this tower. Like, how is Subaru and his group going to be able to get there? So I like that they kind of set that up here. Now, another thing that I want to talk about, like, I could talk about everything that went down at the manor, but again, the manor is just a lot more like setup stuff for what's going to happen later on in the arc. Like, we saw the return of Muriel, which I thought was really great. And a lot, I don't really have like a lot of attachment to Muriel because I learned recently that a lot of her content got cut like throughout the series, like in the anime. So I don't really have that much of a connection with her. So this like these upcoming episodes are essentially going to be me learning more about Muriel. So looking forward to that. But one of the last things that I really want to talk about is everything that went on with Garfiel at the end of the episode. I love the fact that he went to go talk to his mom, and even though his mom still doesn't remember him, you just see him break down, right? We see Garfield have this moment where he just breaks. He cries in his mother's arms, even though she doesn't know that he is her son. from everything that's happened, like Garfield, even I think Garfield knows too that her husband is never going to come back, or it's gonna take a lot for her husband to even come back. But she just has so much hope. She has so much hope that her husband will be able to come back because he's provided such a beautiful life for her and her two children that it makes Garfield break. Like my favorite thing about Garfield is that even though he's portrayed as kind of like the stock shonen character, I love the fact that he is a character that is so in tune with his emotions, right? He's so willing to just break down and just cry in his mother's arms like this. And what my other favorite thing that I love about this scene too happens at the end of the episode where you find out the names of the siblings. I think it was Fred and Jaleel, I think is what it was. And what I liked about it too is that even though Garfield's mom doesn't remember him and doesn't remember Frederica, what I loved so much is that parts of them like are still there in the subconscious of her mind. Even though she doesn't remember her own son in front of her, like traits of her two previous children that she knows she has deep in her subconscious but can't bring it back. She like that influenced the naming process of her children. And I love that so much. It makes you wonder like will Garfield's mom ever truly remember him? Like it makes you feel and I personally think that she will at some point within the narrative, but like I said, it's going to take a lot for Garfield to be able, I think, to bring those memories back to the surface. A lot of season 3, I felt like was trying in vain, but this season, I wonder if since Garfield isn't with Subaru and he's not taking part in the action, I wonder if what he's going to be doing this season is trying to get his mom to remember him because we've gotten very close. This is the closest that we've ever seen to Garfield helping his mom get the memories back of him. And knowing now that him and Frederica are still in the subconscious of her mind, she just can't remember them fully. I think that gives Garfield hope, and I think he's going to keep trying to have his mom remember him. But aside from that, man, this was such a perfect episode. From just like the conversation with Subaru and Julius, like in the midpoint of the episode, to everything I talked about with Subaru and Anastasia, there was so much great stuff that happened here in this episode that it makes me wonder what the rest of the season is truly going to be like. Like I'm just so ready to see what goes down next. Like when we get to this tower, like everything that goes on next, I'm just so excited to watch. But I think that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comments below. How did you guys feel? And as light novel readers, like without giving spoilers, how did you guys feel about this episode? Because that's another like aspect that I want to find out more about is how was this episode like to your guys' standards, right? Like, did they cut a lot of stuff? And if they did, like don't spoil like big stuff, but like give me the rundown, essentially. But like I said, that's gonna do it for me. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comments below. Did you guys love it as much as me? Or did you guys not like it as much? That's also good to know. But the journey is just getting started, and I'm looking forward to continuing it with all of you. So like, comment, subscribe, and as always, I'm going to talk to you guys next time.